So it has been a week since online game store crashes because of the release of the most anticipated follow-up to the indie darling, Hollow Knight Silksong. The hype was unreal, and it is predictable to see that a lot of new people have jumped into Silksong and even the previous Hollow Knight just to see what the fuss is about. And I guess a lot of people were not anticipating the game to be hard. So lo and behold, Team Cherry at the 9th of September comes swiftly with some nerfs. So I just heard the news today and I really gotta say it for myself here. So we have a few gaming articles already coming out with the Silksong patch that is nerfing some of the bosses. So we've seen a couple of articles from sources like The Gamer, Games Radar, and then like GameRed. The Gamer said after a week of non-stop complaints, Hollow Knight Silksong first patch is making the game easier. Honestly, not surprising with the amount of people currently playing. There will be some complaint regarding the difficulty. I guess a lot of people are not anticipating that. Hollow Knight Silksong first few days have been filled with nothing but praise for the highly anticipated indie sequel. Well, almost nothing but praise. Some of you have been struggling with Silksong's difficulty. There's good news incoming if you're one of those people, as the game's first patch will make Silksong a little bit easier in a variety of ways. So yeah, the article here explained how Team Cherry rolled out a new patch on Steam. The patch is focusing on a few bug fixes and like glitches and whatnot, but one of the things that people really focuses on is actually the nerf to the two of the early game bosses, which is Sister Splinter and also Morwing. So, well, watch out for any one of you who haven't played the game that far. Hopefully you guys are not spoiled by this. The bosses are Morwing, the flame boss that looks like a giant moth, and Sister Splinter, a plant boss that uses vine to take you down. If either of those bosses had you feeling like you're banging your head against a brick wall, or making you feel like Silksong might not be the game for you, maybe come back next week and they'll be slightly easier to beat. Yeah, and obviously, this update, this patch nerf that Team Cherry has rolled out, kinda splits the masses regarding their opinion, and that is very predictable coming from a hardcore fandom such as Hollow Knight itself. And the article from Games Radar here especially is kind of a bit controversial in my opinion. Title goes, Team Cherry decided an early Silksong boss wants a nerf, so of course players are debating if it actually needs one, while also claiming their quote-unquote I beat it pre-nerf trophies. Yeah, I know, I mean, it's a symbol of prestige, right? So let's read this. Once Hollow Knight Silksong escaped the well-toned hands of the godly gamers who apparently playtested this thing, a whole bunch of us mortals found that this Metroidvania is difficult enough to double as a dirt-eating simulator. Team Cherry has been quick to respond with a nerf to some early game bosses and resource checks, softening the beginning of the difficulty curve, and this decision has in turn stoked discussion in the community, with a particular emphasis on one boss. Two bosses have taken a swing from the nerf bat, or will when the patch gets here. Sister Splinter and Morwing. Both are due for a slight difficulty reduction, per Team Cherry's patch preview. The later boss is much harder for my money and has ignited far more chatter. Morwing is encountered in Greymoor, relatively early in Silksong, and it quickly developed a reputation as an early quote-unquote wall. A boss that will likely stop you in your tracks and force you to learn some stuff. He killed me a few times, that's for sure. Players speculate that the Morwing nerfs will likely reduce how many of his attacks deal 2 damage, limit the effective range of some of his attacks, or adjust his behavior so that he doesn't attack from off-screen as often. The nature of Morwing's bounce arena makes it pretty easy to run away to heal, but this opens you up to unpredictable attack, flying in from somewhere you can't see. And it can be tougher to evade them. Like some players, I found that audio cues could help with this. It was a well-designed fight, but having a boss deal double damage on all its attack that early in the game is ridiculous. Frosty the Snow Pickle. I don't know who you are. Dealing 2 mass contact damage specifically feels so bad, agrees Amatsumegashi. Dude is unnecessarily difficult for an early game boss, argues Professional Try 221. I see someone claiming Morwing is a bad game design. Ooh, that is a really bad take. People have suggested skipping or cheesing Morwing, and others have recommended strategies to beat it, frequently boiling down to get hit less, as is often the case with hard game. Plenty of people say they didn't struggle with this boss at all and are surprised to see it getting nerfed, arguing that other bosses, like the notorious Savage Beastfly, are more deserving. I agree with that. If there's one thing we can all agree on, it's that the people who beat Morwing pre-nerf should all receive a solid gold trophy in the mail for their triumph, and it is now their solemn duty to be as smug as possible. Wow, who wrote this article, dude? And it is now their solemn duty to be as smug as possible when discussing this and all other nerf content in the future. Okay, so this article post from Games Radar, this is the one that caught my attention because of the existence of the I beat it pre-nerf trophies, right? This I beat it pre-nerf trophies usually runs along the fandom of the Dark Souls series, the hardcore gamers of the Dark Souls series, right? A lot of people pride themselves for beating the hard bosses before they got nerfed by the developer, which essentially locking out that difficulty level from the game entirely for anyone trying to beat it pre-nerf. So they have that kind of sense of pride, like, oh yeah, I beat it when it was like way harder before. So it definitely does exist, people who think like that. I mean, there is a sense of pride when you beat something harder than it is currently now. Like, it's the kind of saying that, well, back in my days, Morwings was harder and whatnot, right? But I consider myself a Dark Souls enthusiast. I played DS1, 2, 3, and then I beat Elden Ring, and I beat Sekiro, and obviously I played Hollow Knight. I don't really know if it can be considered a Souls-like, but the difficulty curve is definitely there. Does it make me good at these games? No, not really. I'm not good at any of these games. They're fun and I am just persistent at it. I'm just enjoying the difficulty curve and the actual challenge. Like, there is definitely a badge of honor of like beating a very, very difficult game. I can agree to that. Like, some people take that as like a sign of prestige. But and this comes from someone who plays Hollow Knight a lot. Silksong is definitely harder than Hollow Knight. I don't know if I will catch some flack because of this, but I see a lot of discussion online saying how like, oh, only the new kid in Silksong is complaining about the difficulty. Us who played Hollow Knight previously, we have no trouble at all. That's a lie. I definitely have difficulty playing Silksong. Me playing Hollow Knight years ago don't really make Silksong any much easier for me. Like, I may have the base understanding of the mechanics, and some of the controls came naturally to me, but all of the new mechanics that they introduce, how different the pogo is, how different enemy types interact with me, and how the combat just feels tighter and much more precise than Hollow Knight, definitely needs adapting to. And this difficulty curve is definitely apparent on the first, I think it would be like the first difficulty spike of the game, Hunter's March. I wouldn't even say like the first quote-unquote wall for the players to actually overcome is Morwing. I would say it was Hunter's March, because for me, Silksong, the difficulty presents itself not in the form of bosses, it's actually in the form of the platforming. The environment, I think, is much harsher than what you have in Hollow Knight. Hunter's March in Silksong is comparable to the Mantis tribe in Hollow Knight. There are not too much environmental hazard when it comes to the Mantis tribe, the Mantis village in Hollow Knight. However, when we traveled through the Hunter's March, holy shit, the platforming was hell for me. And I am not that skilled in platforming, so my difficulty in that part of the game is understandable. However, I understand the Hunter's March being there. As frustrating as it was for me, it actually helped me learn the game. It actually cemented the fundamental of platforming into my skill set in order for me to beat the game. Now, why am I talking a lot about this is because I don't think Sister Splinter and Morwing is deserving of the nerf that they got. Now, is that opinion of mine is caused by my pride as a hardcore gamer or someone who have beat Dark Souls? Not really. I feel like a nerf is warranted, but I think it's aimed at the wrong direction. I think Morwing and Sister Splinter, even when they are challenging, they serve as a good difficulty spike in the game for you to actually cement your skill set in order for you to face tougher bosses later on. I understand that they want to smoothen out the curve, right? They want to smoothen out the curve of the bosses so that you can scale up in your skill set in order to beat some of the later bosses easier. While I definitely find both Sister Splinter and Morwing challenging, I don't necessarily find them frustrating. And you guys will see this on my Let's Play episode. I don't necessarily blow through them because I'm a good gamer. I die a lot to them. I'm not saying that they are easy, but they are not frustrating, in my opinion. That amount of challenge and that amount of wall that you face early on in a quote-unquote Souls-like difficulty game is warranted. This comes back into the argument of a lot of people who have accessed Elden Ring, who have just entered into the Souls-like series and are wanting an easier experience of the game, which kind of defeats the purpose of the game itself. The reason why these games are challenging to begin with is so that it can feel so rewarding when you beat them. However, I do have to say that some of these bosses are not as well tuned as others. I can agree on that. For example, the one that people have notoriously been complaining about is the Savage Beastfly. The Savage Beastfly is an optional boss that will reward you with one of the horizontal progression of the game. It's pretty good. It's a pretty good reward, but honestly, I'm not using it right now. But you know, I don't fight the bosses for a mechanical reward. I actually beat them just so I can play every content I can out of the game because I love the game so much. Now, the Savage Beastfly is actually the boss where it was so goddamn hard and also so goddamn frustrating. And why is that? Because Savage Beastfly has an aspect of randomness to it. Not only the area is quite limited, the Savage Beastfly also summons a bunch of mobs to help it fight you, and it just fills up your screen with unnecessary hazard. And these mobs behave in their own behavioral pattern that it's kind of hard for you to track down what each and everyone is doing. So there is an aspect of randomness to the Savage Beastfly that I don't really like. I don't like it when the bosses are unpredictable like that. One of the things that Games Radar talks about in their article is how the Morwing behavior is actually problematic. Players speculate that the Morwing nerfs will likely reduce how many of his attacks deal 2 damage, limit the effective range of some of his attack, or adjust his behavior so that he doesn't attack from off-screen as often. The nature of Morwing's boss arena makes it pretty easy to run away to heal, but this opens you up to unpredictable attack. This is the one that I'm highlighting, opens you up to unpredictable attack. So I understand that when you dash away from Morwing and then you try to heal, the Morwing will realize that you are away and it will do a flying dash attack towards you. Now, the thing is, that is not an unpredictable attack. That is actually very predictable. I even utilized that. I even utilized that in my fight against the Morwing because I know when I'm away from the Morwing, it will do that attack. That is not unpredictable. That is actually predictable. If you know that when you gain a certain distance from the boss and the boss will do one specific attack, you should be able to predict that attack. The thing about Hollow Knight bosses is that you figure out their pattern, you figure out their movement behavior, and then punish those accordingly. If you can make a certain condition happen where the boss will commit to one move, that is predictable. He says that, but this opens you up to unpredictable attacks flying in from somewhere you can't see. It can be tougher to evade them. Brother, Morwing is a big ass boss. If you run to the right while the Morwing is on the left and you heal on the right, the Morwing will come at you with the altitude, the level of height where you are currently standing right now, which even without any upgrade of the game, you can high jump over that attack and pogo off of it. It's actually easy. It's predictable because the Morwing will always dash to where you currently are. It's not unpredictable. It's not flying in from somewhere you can't see. You know what side the Morwing is on, and you know what height the Morwing will come in from. Okay? So this is not an unpredictable attack. And another part of the article that I want to highlight is, it says, unsurprisingly, Morwing kicked up a cloud of the usual post, obviously written with shaking hands after the umpteenth failed boss attempt. I see someone claiming Morwing is a bad game design. Now, that is where I disagree. Is Morwing hard? Yes, I think it is. Is it frustrating? No, I think it is not. Morwing is not badly designed because Morwing is a boss that you can actually study the move of. If you see my Let's Play, or if you see any other gameplay of Morwing and just watch the moveset, you can actually internalize it and actually counter it accordingly. That is a good boss design. The thing that is a bad boss design is the Beastfly because every factor is different every time you fight it. Sometimes it summons the swirly blade dude, sometimes it summons the blade armadillo, sometimes it summons another smaller Beastfly. The aspect of randomness makes it unpredictable. The Morwing is not unpredictable. I think I can make an argument regarding Sister Splinter though, because Sister Splinter also summoned a few mobs to help her fight you, which can get annoying a little bit, but it's still manageable. The fact that Sister Splinter also kills them with her own attack, and also there's only one type of enemy that spawns, it's still manageable somewhat. So these nerfs, are they warranted or not? In my opinion, I think nerf should come in order to smoothen out the learning curve for the game. We all know it's coming, we all know it's there. When Hollow Knight Silksong came out, a lot of new people, a lot of new eyes will set its sight on Silksong and will try it out to see what the hype is all about. That is definitely warranted, and a lot of new people will complain about how the game is really hard. That has been a long time coming. Do I think the nerf is warranted? I think it is. If you want to smoothen out the curve, I think it's fine. Make the game more accessible to more people. I do love the game so much that I want more people into... I want to let more people in the knowing of the existence of the lore of the game, the beauty of the art of the game, the beauty of the music that Christopher Larkin has scored. The whole aspect, other than the difficulty of the game, is insanely good. It's a masterpiece of a game. However, there are some people on the online community that really didn't like the nerfs. Especially on this one, on the Gamer article, we see a couple of comments saying, "Can say that it surprises me that people complain about it, and as someone before has already said it, it was snooze fest for anyone from our generation, quote in parentheses the 80s, embarrassing." And another one comes, "Too hard for new kids, not too hard for the 80s kids." And then another one replied, "80s kids here, you don't speak for me, let the game be easier and more accessible for those that need or want it." And then Kenneth says, "Brother, nerfing early bosses doesn't mean much. Also acting like 80s kids are god gamers is laughable. There's a reason most of the younger generation dominates professional gaming. This is a business, and a curve to difficulty makes the game more accessible. Relax, the truly hard bosses are remaining unnerved." So yeah, a lot of people have made this into a generational debate about like, oh, newer kids, they're not as tough skin as we are 80s kids. I'm not an 80s kid, but holy shit. But like, people are taking this out of proportion. Like, you shouldn't be comparing this to generational value. There are some people who are on the newer generation who are actually more tough skinned than I am, and people who are from the older generation who can barely touch a controller. And it's really embarrassing for someone to actually make this a generational debate. Like, come on, let's not blow this out of the topic here. A lot of people think it's just a lot of the new players being soft, and a lot of people think it's the old fandom being too hard. Well, I'm kind of in between. You see, I think that Silksong does need a bit of a smoothening out in the difficulty curve, because here's the thing, now that a lot of people have played Silksong, it opens up the game to the public. It's essentially a massive game test for Team Cherry, right? And they have a lot of feedback, and a lot of the feedback is a lot of people recoiling from the difficulty. In order for Team Cherry to smoothen out the experience for the newer audience, the difficulty curve needs to be a bit balanced out. And I agree to that. However, I think they missed the mark a little bit here about the bosses. I don't think it's Morwing that needed to be nerfed. I can understand why it's the Sister Splinter, but it's not Morwing. I'm saying this because I died to Morwing a lot, okay? I'm not saying this because like, oh, I beat it in first try, it's not hard at all. No, I died to Morwing a lot. I just find it fun. I just find the progress of learning to be the actual reward of beating the bosses of Hollow Knight. And hopefully, the nerf that has been rolled out to the bosses here doesn't really impede on the experience or the learning curve that the new players needed in order to actually grant them the satisfaction that they need to beat the further bosses on the game. However, I also am against the older fandom of the game that is kind of gatekeeping difficulty. Like, oh man, the newer kids are just so soft, they can't really stand these bosses, come on. Like, okay, like, we know you're prideful of your achievement of beating the game and whatnot. Let other people have fun. You know in your heart that the game is amazing. Not only because of its difficulty, but also because of the art direction, the music, and the lore. Let people enjoy that too, alright? Don't gatekeep all of that behind difficulty wall, not appropriate for those who wants to learn to love the game. But yeah, that's about it. I just wanted to share my 2 pieces about that. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed that. I will see you on the next one. Bye bye.